Welcome back. Now, before we return to the Ben Emlyn-Jones interview, I recently did a bit of UFO investigating in East Yorkshire. What follows is my report, in which I am not drawing any conclusions. I am merely reporting on what was observed and asking for more information from members of the public. Last year, I was contacted by somebody living not far south of Scarborough, a retired individual who worked in a highly technical profession. He has been recording UFO activity in a specific field of view observed from his house since 2008. He mounted video surveillance equipment at his property pointing towards the active area and left it running continuously. He has kept a diary over the last 4 years and recorded unexplained lights over the same narrow field of view about 7 miles away. He has 221 separate sighting reports and has hours and hours of footage. After careful examination of the footage, the usual explanations have been firmly ruled out. They are not Chinese lanterns because they remain confined to a very narrow field of view, occasionally change direction and do not drift off in the direction of prevailing wind. The lights do not conform to aircraft or helicopter lights due to the colour, the frequency and the intensity variation. The location of these lights is about 8 miles south-southwest of the RAF tracking station at Stakston Wold. Now, one would immediately jump to the conclusion that the lights must be something to do with the military facility, but this does not seem to be the case. The witness is convinced they are nothing to do with the base. This base is just a remote tracking station. It does not have a runway or large numbers of troops. Our witness, who wishes to remain anonymous, made contact with another individual who by coincidence had been filming the same lights. This second individual was recording the same lights in an entirely different location, on some occasions on the same nights. So because of this, they were able to pinpoint within a few square miles exactly where the lights were emanating from. It turns out they are pretty much in the middle of nowhere, over the Yorkshire Wolds, not far from a place called Sledmere. The Wolds are steep hills and valleys made from chalk. On the Ordnance Survey map, they can be recognised by the close-together contour lines indicating very steep, narrow valleys. I caught up with the second witness, Paul Sinclair, about 3 miles east of Sledmere on the B1253. Paul has an interest in unidentified aerial phenomenon, and this particular area Paul has filmed many glowing objects moving across the sky. Just tell us first, Paul, when did you first notice things in the sky that you believe cannot be explained?
I would think, regarding this area, I would think that we're talking about 5 or 6 years ago, coming back from work at a place called Sledmere. Me and my work colleague got out of the vehicle and watched what we can only describe as a UFO. This thing was no conventional aircraft. It just hovered above the trees, making no sound. We watched it, not for 5 minutes, but over 2 minutes, and it didn't fly away. It disappeared. It vanished. Right. Just into thin air.
So why couldn't that have been either a helicopter or an airplane?
It was the shape of a breadstick, if that doesn't sound too crazy, and
right.
glowing white, and you couldn't hear it, you could feel it.
Right.
It looked like a.
Okay.
It's hard to explain. How can you explain something that we know nothing about?
Right. Now, over a period of years, you've on and off filmed some of these objects, yeah, and we can show a few clips.
Yeah, I would think I've got hours of footage of these objects, which I'm calling ILFs, intelligent light forms, because there is an awareness to them.
Now, there is another witness who lives some miles from this, seemingly this hotspot, and he's been filming since 2007, and I believe you've collaborated with him a little bit. Just tell us about that, Paul.
I have, yeah. It was this chap that first made me aware that there were more to it than just our one sighting at Sledmere. I subsequently came out with my daughter, who had just finished university, fetched 2 separate cameras, and we filmed the objects. Now they're there on my website to look at.
Just give us the domain name, Paul.
It's www.ilfufo.co.uk.
Okay.
It's nothing exotic. It's purely to collect reports from around East Yorkshire, because this area, I would think it's as active as anywhere in the world, and that's no boast. It really is.
So you collaborated with this other chap, and you were able to locate more accurately because you were both observing from different vantage points.
And two cameras running.
Two cameras running in simultaneously on two
Approximately 7 miles apart,
Right.
I would have thought, because that is about 7 miles from this location.
Right. Now, one of the areas that you've identified is, there's only a few houses there, a place called Cowlam or Cowlam Crossroads.
Cowlam, all this is occurring around Cowlam, Langtoft, Cottam, Staxton Wold, which is very close to the RAF base. Incidentally, that's probably the oldest RAF base in the world. Well, it is the oldest operational RAF base in the world. Now, there's stuff happening around that RAF base on a regular basis. Now, why they're not aware of it, but they must be. But, you know.
Yeah, now I've actually filmed up there, Paul, and a skeptic would say, well, it's obviously some kind of military work because there's a lookout station there, they're obviously doing something. But having seen the footage myself, it's and looked at the spread over the years and how long these things stay in the sky for, it's hard to put it down to some kind of military activity.
If it's military, I mean, I really can't say it is or it isn't. And my gut feeling is it's not. I also believe, whether people want to believe my theory or not, that these things aren't coming from space. They're already here.
Now, the other witness in his films, he sees a lot of these lights. They'll kind of move slowly around the sky, and then they will come down, and they appear to come down over the Cowlam Crossroads area. Right, I'm at Cowlam Crossroads, which is not far from Sledmere, about 30 minutes south of Scarborough, and we're on the brow of a hill here. I think it's about 500 feet above sea level. It's the highest point for some distance around here. And this is the hill where one of the witnesses, who's been filming these UFOs for 5 years, effectively the UFOs disappear over the top of this hill and just disappear behind that ridge there. Now, what we've done, we've drawn a line on the map from where he's been sighting these things to this location, and we've continued that line, and I'm just going to have a walk along that line and see if there's any significant landmarks, or just see if we see anything on the ground, because according to him they seem to disappear and go down to the ground, and then he doesn't see them again, so it's as if that they're disappearing when they reach the ground.
Now, this chap's saying that they come down. I'm not going to disagree with him. That's what he thinks. I tend to think that they just fade away.
Right.
I don't think they actually come down. I don't think that. I just think they fade away.
Right.
But it's how they can appear. They just appear in an instant, and then they'll just stay there for 5-10 minutes, and then they just evaporate.
Right. I'm at a place called Cowlam Medieval Village, and there's a very old church here. Now, this is a very sparsely populated area, and the activity appears to have been concentrated over this area, as I say, over about the last 5 years. And this church appears to be on the brow of a hill, or just over the brow of a hill, where this activity has been focused over the last, as I say, 5 years. So just thought we'd come here and just have a look around, see if we could see anything. How close would you say you've come to these objects, Paul?
I would have thought 500 feet.
Right, and
not on a regular basis, but we have at one point, and the footage is there on my website to see that.
Right.
You know.
And have you recorded any noise or
There's
sound?
no noise whatsoever. They're totally silent. It'll take you by surprise, because half of the time you're looking in that direction, you turn around and they're there.
The RAF tracking station at Staxton Wold is in direct line of sight of this area, about 8 miles to the north. If you listen carefully, you can hear the radar scan interfering with our camera about every 12 seconds. I spoke to locals in one of the local pubs, and out of 5 people in the bar, 3 spoke of seeing UFOs. The land over which these lights regularly appear is uninhabitable due to the steep gorges. Not the sort of place you would expect to find people, and not the sort of place military exercises would be being carried out. This is not military land, it is farming land. We decided to walk across the area of land which appears to be where the lights have been centred, walking from the B1252 just south of Sledmere to the medieval Cowlam Church, walking along the bottom of the steep gorges. This is private land, not used by the public or walkers. We were warned by a farmer to get off the land, who sent a rather vicious-looking dog over to suss us out. The first thing I noticed in these chalk hills were a series of small craters about 4 feet across, roughly spaced 35 metres apart, which can be seen on Google Earth. How these have been made or what they are for, I do not know. At one point where 3 separate gorges meet, we found a circular pond 50 feet in diameter. This might not be significant, but I thought I would mention it. Now, you were telling me about a farmer who some years ago, over 20 years ago, had a sighting. He was driving along this road
He was driving along the road from Octon leading to Sledmere, and his farm's in between that location. He was driving along this road, got a call from his son-in-law who was at the farm to tell him there was something above the farm. As they approached, he could see the object. Obviously, it came into full view when they got to the farm, he says, and he can only describe it as a spaceship. Now, I only have his words on this, and I'm trying to relate it as best I can. He said it was circular. I think he said it was about 40 foot round, and it had like fairy lights all around the edge. It was black, other than that. He said, and he went into the wood, he pointed, he says, that wood over there is mine. He says, and I followed this object as it went across the trees at walking pace, across the top of the trees, he says, and it just made a noise like a breeze. Nothing else, he says, and my wife, like a...
Okay.
He says, my wife was screaming in the distance, it's going to take you, and all sorts of things. They were frightened.
Right.
He says, the very next day I documented this. I never wanted it to fade from my mind. Well, of course, my next question was, I'll omit your name, omit the location, can I use it on the website? No. Okay. Now, you've got the story, or the gist of the story, but he's not the only one. I've sort of gained confidence of a few of these people around here, and there's lots of them had these sightings. There's a guy who works at Plaxton's Coaches who doesn't want his name put out on my website or on camera for fear of ridicule, and he claims to have seen one landed. There's a valley just at the other side of this edge at Langtoft, and he says he's seen one landed in the valley with what he called people or beings outside it.
Really?
He says, and he can't understand why he just drove past it, and he never will to this day.
Right.
I know this all sounds bizarre, but I'm only relating what I'm told.
The other witness that we've spoken to seems to think that the objects are coming down in that zone. I mean, you just your own gut feel, because you've been watching these things for years. Do you think that there's facilities under the ground, perhaps?
No. I'm sorry if that conflicts with what you want to hear, but no, I don't. I don't think that. I think there's more chance of something like that up at Staxton Wold.
Right.
And I can tell you now that the farmers in that area definitely think there is.
Right. So this is near to the early warning base.
Yeah, near to the RAF base. Yeah.
Right. So you think the farmers there perhaps think there's something under the ground?
No, I know that's what they think.
Right. Okay.
That doesn't make it right. Once again, I'm just relating what I'm told.
But they would not go on camera or admit that publicly.
No chance.
Right.
To be honest, I'm not allowed to go near farm because they just don't want. They know what they're seeing, and they're seeing these objects, and they're seeing more than objects. No, they're not willing to go on camera with it. That we were up at Cottam Crossroads, and we'd bought 2 new phones, myself and my wife. We observed the light form, we observed the object, and filmed it, or I did. And a Chinook landed in the field at the side of me and shut down. Not a normal helicopter, not a police helicopter, and completely shut down and went dark. My wife panicked and said, we better move. I said, well, we're doing nothing wrong, we're parked up. The helicopter eventually lifted off the ground and flew away. Right. This is in a field just like this. Why would it land at side of my vehicle? But I'll get back to the phones now. Within 2 minutes of it flying away, brand new phones, my wife's phone rang, and it was an unknown number. And she picked it, hello, nothing, it went dead. Mine did the same, went dead. Now all that could be just coincidence, but I found it highly unnerving and strange, to be honest. And well, we did drive off, you know.
Okay, Paul, thank you for taking time to talk to me today, and just remind viewers of what your website address is again.
www.ilfufo.co.uk.
Right, lovely.
Thank you very much.
Our anonymous witness has filmed fast-moving phenomena in the area where the slow-moving lights are normally seen. Here's the first one. And the second. It's all very Bob Lazar. Now, the only thing I would conclude about these observations is whatever they are, the RAF tracking station at Staxton Wold must be aware of them. If you have seen anything strange in East Yorkshire or anywhere else for that matter, or have explanations for these observations, please get in touch via richplanet.net. I'm talking to Ben Emlyn-Jones, and one of your other areas of research is the UFO subject, which viewers will know that I'm interested in as well. Now, you know, there are some very prominent cases. Just run through a couple of the cases that you've looked at, Ben.
It's hard to pick out a kind of favourite or the ones which I think are most significant, because there are many highly significant ones. I mean, one of the best of recent years is probably the Phoenix Lights, because it includes two vital elements, and one is a multiple eyewitness sighting over a largely populated area. There was film taken, which is, you know, there's several shots of it broadcast.
This was in 1997.
Yeah, Phoenix, Arizona.
A kind of boomerang type shaped object was there with lights along the side of it.
That's it.
And at some point, the military set off flares, and then they tried to explain it as these flares, so that as if they were trying to cover something.
Yeah, virtually everyone in the city of Phoenix in Arizona saw this. There's some film that's been put on the news. I suspect that's probably not the best film that was taken, but anyway, what happened was next that the Governor Fife Symington, who was the governor of the state of Arizona, and this is the other essential element, we have a cover-up, and it's an admitted cover-up, because Symington held a press conference where he basically lampooned the entire UFO theory by bringing on a couple of police officers with a man dressed as an alien.
That's right.
To make a big joke out of it. Now, Symington later, well, the word confession has never been used, but I think it should be. Fife Symington later confessed that this was a cover-up, and he gave his reasons why he thought it was the best thing to do. Now, my question is, if this is a cover-up which, you know, in which the perpetrator actually confessed, how many cover-ups have there been in which the perpetrator has not confessed? So I think the Phoenix Lights is one of the most significant UFO events of recent
So do you
years.
think he was instructed to do that? To come out and lampoon the thing, or do you think he was just trying to get votes, or why was he doing that?
He has said that he wanted to prevent a panic, because he knew there were no flares. He knew that it was not a case of flares at all. He knew how many people had seen this. He saw it himself. He wanted to prevent panic, and because he was afraid that people in the city would go berserk when they thought a real extraterrestrial object was
So what's
there.
his stance on it now then, Ben?
Last thing I heard was he's actually part of the Disclosure witness community, and he's actually speaking out at Disclosure Project and associated Disclosure Movement press conferences and lectures about what happened.
Now let's talk about that, because the disclosure lobby is a big part of the UFO subject, and those who aren't informed on it, basically a lot of people who've studied UFOs and who are aware of the information are absolutely convinced that predominantly the military and the US military have secrets about extraterrestrial technology. They've had these secrets or recovered craft since at least the 1940s, and there's been a cover-up in place for many years. And the evidence for that statement is abundant. Do you agree with that, Ben?
Yeah.
And there are campaigners such as Stephen Bassett, who, and previously Dr. Stephen Greer, who campaigned for the American government to admit what it knows. Now, I've covered this on the show before, that there was a campaign to get signatures, because I think if they get over so many signatures to the White House on a particular petition, the White House has to make a statement on it.
Yeah, it's the We the People program.
We the People. Now, I've read this out on a previous show, but I'll just read it. So the White House were basically forced to make an official statement on their stance on UFOs, and this is what a representative of the American government said. The US government has no evidence that any life exists outside our planet, or that an extraterrestrial presence has contacted or engaged any member of the human race. Phil Larson from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy reported to the whitehouse.gov website. In addition, there is no credible information to suggest that any evidence is being hidden from the public's eye. So people such as Richard Dolan and other commentators reacted quite violently to that, because they just believe that is just a 100% lie.
Yes.
Yeah. So Now, Stephen Bassett, when they made that statement, he said, he kind of said, well, that's what I expected you to say. And we've now got a document, an official statement from the government, which I can prove to be incorrect. That is a lie. And we've now got something on the table that we can now fight the government over. That's his philosophy on it.
Yeah.
So his intention for that campaign was not necessarily to get the government to admit what they actually know. It was to get them to officially say, no, we don't know anything. Because I don't think until that point they had officially said, we don't know anything. They'd never officially denied it, in other words.
They just it was always neither confirm nor deny.
Right. Now, I know your opinion on this, Ben. You believe this is the likes of Stephen Bassett are grossly naive in thinking they're going to get anywhere.
I think their campaigns are unlikely to meet with success. Good luck to him. You know, I've signed the petitions that he has started, but I think it's very unlikely that they will achieve anything other than raising awareness of the issue, which is something worth doing, and I support them. I support the Paradigm Research Group for that reason, but I don't think they're going to achieve their ultimate aim, which is to get willing disclosure from the government. The reason I think this is because they underestimate the scale and implications of the secret that's been kept. Now, what I mean to say is there's big secrets and there's little secrets and there's very big secrets. The big secrets are things like who Bill Clinton is having an affair with. You know, who's this Monica Lewinsky person? Those are portrayed as big secrets, but there are bigger secrets than that. Now, the implications of President Clinton having sex with Monica Lewinsky in the Oval Office are simply that, obviously, the president is morally unfit and he was impeached. Okay, what are the implications that the government, not just any particular government, but the US government over a vast period of time, we're talking close to a century now, has kept a secret so huge and so explosive that it would literally change the world, and in a way that is almost beyond imagination, and that a lot of the suffering, a lot of the war, a lot of the famine and human deprivation and environmental destruction, in fact most of it that has occurred over the last 60 or 70 years could have been prevented. I mean, what are they going to say? Sorry, we forgot to tell you.
What you're talking about is free energy.
Primarily, yes.
Yeah. So this is a technology which is associated with the UFO subject, which is, many people claim, is how UFOs operate. It's to do with their propulsion system, that it involves some kind of, sometimes termed free energy, 0-point energy, various different names. But basically, we don't need to be digging things out of the ground, such as coal and oil and nuclear. We can generate power from the vacuum of space itself.
Exactly. These fossil fuels are Stone Age. The fact that we have to, as you say, dig them out of the ground, burn them, create vast amounts of poisonous chemicals, charge people a lot of money to use them, and in fact, using these is way beyond the price range of half the world's population anyway. When, as you say, energy exists which can be obtained easily, safely, cheaply, and virtually infinitely. Now,
but I can't remember a single politician ever bringing up this subject, Ben. Which I'm keen to try and get that subject politicised, because these politicians, they're very much into the green agenda, but they want to build wind turbines and they want to have solar panels, or they want to. So they're looking for conventional green technologies, which to me. They're going down the wrong corridor, but they're probably being steered down that corridor.
I think they'd be deliberately steered down a technological cul-de-sac. And the same goes for nuclear fusion, which they're doing at Culham in Oxfordshire. This is a reactor which creates nuclear fusion, which is so hot you can't possibly use any heat exchanger to actually produce the energy.
Right. But
they're investing £10 billion into these tokamaks.
Right.
But maybe because they know it won't work.
Right. I mean, you've got what was termed cold fusion, and again, I have spoken about this in the past, that allegedly worked, the Pons and Fleischmann thing. So I don't know what stage of development that is in now. If it's claimed that did work back in 1989, so I don't know whether that's then been developed.
Well, officially, the Pons and Fleischmann's cold fusion was proved wrong. However, there are small companies and private individuals trying to develop it right now, and they're not getting very far. I mean, no big major investor or major politician is supporting them. Now, this cover-up of free energy actually dates back before the main modern UFO era. It actually can be traced back to the 19th century, when inventors such as Nikola Tesla and several other people.
I'm trying to think of the guy who he would power rooms full of light bulbs. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. So you think the cover-up of the UFO information is to do with maintaining the use of fossil fuels on the planet? I think there's other reasons, Ben, which are perhaps... I think the NSA hold a lot of the cards in the UFO information, and I think they monitor things coming in and out of our atmosphere, and I also think that they're monitoring the abduction phenomenon. And the reason why I say that is because of Dan Sherman's testimony. Have you seen that interview?
I've not seen that, no.
Right, where this was in one of my talks I've spoken about at Project Camelot. Interviewed him, and he was getting messages. He was being used as a relay of messages, information that the NSA were getting about people who had been abducted, basically. Now, so I think, assuming that phenomenon is real, that people are being taken and abducted, and the things that they're allegedly doing, i.e. creating hybrid, etc., if that's happening, really that is something that I think if you were a high-ranking person or in one of these groups that you might not want released. I mean, what are your opinions on the reason for the cover-up? You've said they're oil.
On the first hand, you know, I agree that one of the reasons is that society maintains the use of fossil fuels at all costs. This is for both money purposes in terms of the people in the oil companies who are making a fortune. Also, it's for political reasons to do with control and power and basically keeping the majority of people under the thumb of the minority.
Right.
But what I know about the NSA is that the NSA's budget is far higher than any of the CIA or FBI or any of the other institutions.
Yeah, I think they have a big hand in it, and I think they basically oversee our own GCHQ.
Yeah.
And I think our GCHQ, I think, is monitoring the UFO situation through its radar outposts, various ones around the UK, and I've got good reason to believe that.
And this is another aspect of the UFO cover-up.
We're going to go for a quick break, and after the break, we're going to talk about Kevin Arnott.
In May 2012, Richard D. Hall will be speaking throughout the UK and Ireland. Ticket and venue details can be found on the richplanet.net website.